Hey everyone, this is Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com, and today I want to talk about how much money you should be making from poker. Now I gotta say right off the start that this question is a little bit ridiculous to me, but people email me and about it all the time, leave me comments asking this question, and the reason why it's a bit ridiculous to me is because most people actually lose at poker in the long run. It's just the truth. Most people, overestimate their abilities. They tilt too much. They're playing in games where the rake is really high, or they're playing in games with a lot of players that are better than them. So these are many of the reasons why people do not win at poker, but that doesn't mean that you, as somebody who takes the game seriously, is watching, strategy videos like this, for instance, that you can't be one of those winning poker players. By the way, make sure you're subscribed to the channel here if you want to see lots more high-level poker videos. So let's jump right into it. How much can you actually make from poker? All right, so I'm going to start off talking about a small stakes part-time player. I'm going to assume that most of the people watching this video already have a day job. Perhaps you go to school, so you're not a professional, and most people play small stakes, whether you play in a casino or play online. That's just the vast majority of people play at small stakes. So how much should you be making in these games? Well, let's define small stakes first. I'm going to say it's something around like a 10-cent, 25-cent cash game online, a $1, $2 cash game if you play live, and I'm going to say it's something like a $5, a $10 tournament or sit and go buy-in, whether you play online or live. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but nobody gets rich playing these games, especially if you're only playing part-time. Now, with all that said, assuming you're playing a couple nights a week, 2, 3, 4 nights a week, after your job, maybe play a little bit more on the weekends, you've got the time off on the weekends, I definitely think that you can be making, $200, $500, $1,000 a month. I actually talked about this in last week's video. I'll put a link to it right there. But the crucial factor for your success to be able to make a reasonable part-time income like that in these games is you're going to have to be playing, number one, a solid, tight, and aggressive strategy. Is something I talk about in all my books, my free poker cheat sheet, the top link in the description below. And you're also going to have to stop tilting if this is currently a problem for you. This is something I've mentioned many times before. It's actually the number one reason why most people don't win at poker. Guys, you're gonna face a lot of bad beats, a lot of coolers in poker. You're gonna run your kings into aces 4 times in 1 hour. It's gonna happen. It doesn't mean the site's rigged against you. It doesn't mean that, you're cursed, you're never gonna win into their hand again. It's just poker, actually. And the biggest difference between the small amount of people who win in this game and everybody else is that small amount of winners, they learn to control their emotions in the moment, or they just shut the computer off or leave the poker table. This is really the biggest key to your success if you're a small stakes part-time player and you want to have and you want to make a consistent profit in this game. All right, so next let's talk about high stakes part-time players. Now there's not really a whole lot of high stakes part-time players because theoretically, if you're playing high stakes, even part-time, you're probably going to be making more than your job unless you're like a high-level lawyer or a judge or something like that. Because by high stakes, I'm talking about games online, probably about a $5, $10 cash game or higher, maybe about a $10, $20 cash game if you play live, and I'm talking about $100 or more buy-ins if you're playing tournaments or sit and goes. Typically, somebody who's playing in these kind of games, you're going to be able to make 6 figures a year pretty easily, even if you're playing part-time. Now, what's the big kicker here? The big kicker is that most of the people that play these games are world-class professionals, so you're going to have to be a world-class professional yourself in order to succeed in these games. Now, there's tons of advanced poker theory and strategy these days that can help you get to that level. I've got links to all sorts of stuff in the description below, but a serious poker player who gets to this level is probably going to end up quitting their job and just going full-time. And like I said, making 6 figures a year if you're playing mid or high stakes online and or live, and you're a consistent winner, is going to be kind of par for the course for most players. All right, so finally, let's talk about professional poker players. Now, the big key with being a professional poker player is all of a sudden you have all the time, right? When I quit my job back, I think it was like 15 years ago, to become a professional poker player, things changed a lot for me because now all of a sudden I had, 24 hours every single day to potentially play poker. I mean, I gotta sleep, of course, but you guys understand what I mean. I didn't have to find a little bit of time after work anymore. I could simply get up every single day and grind my heart out if I wanted to, 16 hours. So at least in theory, as a professional poker player, you should be making a lot more money than a part-time amateur. Now, I will say that, you know, something I talked about a lot on my blog before is one of the big drawbacks that a lot of people don't understand about what it's like to be a pro is you don't have a boss now. And for a lot of people, you know, for me, like when I first just quit my job and decided to go pro, all of a sudden, you know, I'm like, it's a Monday morning and I'm like, oh, but Call of Duty's on my computer. And it's a long time ago. I don't know if people play Call of Duty anymore, but you understand what I'm saying. There's a lot more distractions. Maybe you want to go out on the weekend with your friends, something like that. And there's nobody telling you that, no, you got to sit down, Nathan, you got to grind right now. It's not fun time. So I find it's actually a big problem with a lot of poker pros is just having that work ethic. But I'm going to assume that you have that you're going to get in there for, you know, 20, 30, 40 hours at least a week, and you're going to grind like on a regular schedule, which is something that I eventually got myself to do after nearly going broke. You know, for somebody like this, even in small stakes games, you can be making several $1,000s a month. I mean, this is something that I've been talking about for years. People think it's crazy, you know, how on earth do you travel the world? I post all this on my Instagram, traveling the world and everything. Not as much, of course, right now with the, you know, world situation, but, you know, I've been living in Southeast Asia for almost 10 years now and traveling a lot. And you know, living in pretty nice places and stuff. Even as a small stakes online pro with the ability to multi-table, or if you play live, if you're playing a lot, putting in a lot of hands, you can potentially make, you know, several $1,000s or even, you know, 5 figures a month if you're stepping up into the upper echelon of small stakes games and into mid stakes games. And there are definitely plenty of small and mid stakes players who make over $100,000 a year, again, as professional poker players. Now, of course, the thing with being a professional poker player is I'm assuming that you've fixed your tilt problem at this point. This is what holds back so many amateurs, as I talked about before. And of course, I'm assuming that you have an excellent advanced strategy already in place. All right, so lastly, let's talk about some of the best ways to make money in poker these days. As I always mention, I'm a big fan of cash games. The biggest reason why is because they have a lot of flexibility. I can get up whenever I want and leave the table. I'm not chained to my chair, as so to speak, in a tournament. And also, more importantly, there is a consistent cash flow in them. Whereas in tournaments and sit and goes, sometimes you can go weeks or even months without having a consistent score. In cash games, the profit for a winning player is relatively stable and consistent and predictable. So I always recommend starting off in the lowest stakes games. If you're a complete beginner to poker, by the way, I recently put out a video with my top 14 poker beginner tips. I'll leave a link to it right there. I think that will help you tremendously in getting started, especially with low stakes cash games. But I would highly recommend just putting your ego to the side and just starting out at the lowest stakes. You know, if you play online, you can literally play for $2. You can start. I do recommend playing real money, by the way. If you do play money, I really don't recommend that unless you're just learning the rules of the game, because the problem with fake money games online is nobody actually plays seriously. It's not really real poker. So I would suggest getting out of the play money games as soon as you understand the rules of the game and just playing at the very lowest stakes. You know, like I said, a 1 cent, 2 cent blind cash game online, you can buy in for $2. If you prefer playing tournaments, they have tournaments online for as little as like 50 cents. Now the average, you know, if you play live in a casino, you know, with the world situation, there's not as much live play right now, but if you do, maybe you're watching this video in the future, unfortunately the average buy-in typically is higher with in live poker, but you can still often find, you know, cash games you can buy in for maybe as little as $50, maybe at tournaments are only $20. Something like that. So now the reason you want to start off in these small stakes cash games, you want to build a solid foundational strategy, a tight and aggressive strategy, as I always talk about, where you're being highly selective with the hands you decide to play pre-flop. You're paying a lot of attention to position, and you're also applying a lot of consistent pressure after the flop on the flop, turn, and river. Now, ultimately though, I always suggest playing the games that you enjoy the most. So while I do suggest cash games for the reasons I discussed before, if you're more into tournaments or sit and goes, or even some other formats, perhaps you like limit hold'em, perhaps you like pot limit Omaha, you like playing with 4 cards instead of 2, I really highly recommend playing the games that you enjoy the most, because it's going to allow you to put in the hands consistently and also, you know, just have that motivation to play and improve each day. So anyways, I hope that some of these tips were helpful for you guys. This is how much money you should be making from poker. Honestly, guys, you know, it's all over the place, of course. As I mentioned off the top, most people do lose at poker, but for somebody who's serious about the game, who is willing to put in the time both at the tables and away from them, improving their game, improving their mental game as well, I do think that there is a path to some reasonable success with poker, and in some cases you can make a lot of money playing poker if you're extremely talented and dedicated. Anyways, that's all I got for this one. Like I said, if you guys want to see more poker videos like this, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, as I put these out all the time, and also shove all in on that like button because it helps me out. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys let me know in the comments below, how much money do you make from poker? Are you getting rich? Are you paying the bills yet? Or are you still struggling to turn a consistent profit? Wherever you are right now, let me know where you're at in the comments below. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. This has been Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com.